Hi, Ian. To get the best discounts off your NordVPN plan, go to nordvpn.com. Is that not? Do I have to say 1, 2, 3? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Hello there and welcome to the latest Blood Red podcast from Liverpool Echo. I'm your host, Joe Rimmer, and Carabao fever is sweeping the Blood Red studio. Gorsty, you are Carabao'd up to your eyeballs, aren't you?
I am. I'm not being rude. I'm not just on my phone for the sake of it.
No,
I am actually telling our loyal viewers that they can view us live now on YouTube. So, but I am very much up for the cup. Yeah.
Are you up for the cup, Theo?
Yeah,
you're always up for the cup.
Always up for the cup. Yeah. It's a bit different being in this chair again, as opposed to you're hosting one, but up for the cup no matter what.
Well, as I say, from now on, I'm only doing Carabao Cup final pods. That's me from now on. You can do all the other ones.
Okay.
Yeah, deal. That's good. We will have to talk a little bit about PSG, unfortunately, throughout this pod because I've put it in the headline. So, and I've got loads and loads of questions. Having a few weeks off from the pod.
Do you know, if I wasn't on this podcast, the title of this podcast would get my click. I've just tweeted it out, and it's Liverpool must now confront 300 million transfer reality.
Well, it's
piqued my interest.
Inspired by Ian Doyle's comment piece yesterday, which I thought was quite an interesting talking point. So I thought we'd just use that and go from there. So we can get straight into that. But before we do, you're travelling down to Wembley.
Mm.
Who will you have in your pocket when you're on the way down to Wembley?
Pierce.
Not Pierce. Not Pierce.
I will have NordVPN.
Yes,
I guess.
You will.
Yeah.
And if you want to get the
Might
best,
not need it for London, but
don't interrupt me. If you want to get the best discount off your NordVPN plan, go to nordvpn/bloodred, and our link gives you 4 months extra on a 2-year plan. There's no risk at all with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. The link is in the podcast episode description box. You can also subscribe, give us thumbs up, do all the nice things. Stars if you're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, leave some reviews. Just do lovely things. You can also send me an email and ask me a question, joe.rimmer@reachplc.com. I've got plenty, so I will try and get through them. Some are big, some are small. I'll try and get to all of them because there's plenty to talk about throughout the podcast. But we will start we'll start at the start with Doyley's headline. It's something that he pointed out in his comment piece yesterday after Liverpool's Champions League exit to PSG, which was a very frustrating game on Tuesday night. He essentially said that in the 4 windows that Luis Enrique has been at PSG, they've spent a net spend of 300 million. In the 2 windows that Arne Slot has been Liverpool manager, they've got a net spend of 20 million pounds. I think it says a lot about what Liverpool needs to do now in the upcoming
a net spend of 20 million.
20 million.
Does that include Georgian lad?
I'm guessing he's including Georgian lad.
I'm a dashfully, I can't say.
Right, yeah. I was wondering about Kavratsky. Right, I'm with you now. Okay.
So essentially, it had me thinking the other night, and it goes along with a couple of the questions. So, PSG's forward line was very good, very quick, very athletic, moved Liverpool about a lot. And Liverpool's forward line was probably, and it's funny saying this, isn't it, because they've had such a good season, but it's probably where they fell short the other night. So what are your thoughts now? Is that a big area of concern for you going into
tonight? It's with the number 9 most definitely, and it's not something that we're saying after wise after the event. I think regular listeners to this podcast will know I've said it for a while now. I've sort of reviewed my idea on them needing a number 10. I think Szoboszlai has grown into this season and become a real important tactical cog in the system, but number 9 is probably as glaring as it has been all season, really, probably even more so than when I was making that point, but over the last few months. Difficult one for Sunday. We're going to come on to what we're going to do with our teams, but I'm not sure who you want going into the final now. Diogo Jota doesn't look 100% fit. Darwin Núñez is not at the level that you want. So it's a real tough one for Liverpool now to get right. So, I totally get that is a situation for Liverpool to look at and address in the summer, and it should be the number 1 priority, really. Yeah. Liverpool get their goals from the wide areas, and that has been the case for years now, really, with, you look back to Firmino, Mane and Salah. Firmino was always the one who scored the fewest out of those 3, except for maybe 2017-18, when I think he gets 27 and Mane gets 20, is it? But other than that, he was definitely 3rd on that list. across the remainder of their Liverpool careers. So wide forwards are where the goals come from, and that has been the case again with Gakpo and Diaz and certainly Mo Salah. But yeah, it wouldn't hurt to get a top class number 9 in and rejig that forward line about a bit.
Yeah, well, friend of the show, Paul Chapman, said, "Hey Joe, had a bit of frustration watching both PSG matches. On one hand, they lost in the penalty shootout. You can say they were right there, but honestly, in both games, they looked slow and sluggish compared to PSG. Even in recent games against Wolves and Southampton, they've struggled at times to take players on and win. Even Salah, how many times in the last month has he put the shoulder one way and then pushed the ball in the other and tried to beat his man and just got cut off? Even the younger players like McAllister, Szoboszlai, Jones, they aren't the quickest. Yes, they have energy and work rate, but overall, this team lacks quickness in my eyes. Do you feel the same?" He talks a little bit more about PSG's speed and athleticism. And that is something I would massively agree with. I think Liverpool have a lot of control. I think they're very technical. And I think Salah has developed into this really good playmaker. But for all Diaz's ability, even for Nunez's pace, they don't seem to have anyone that seems to be quick and able to get in behind as much.
Well, if we're judging it mainly on PSG, they've got 2 of the quickest fullbacks in the business there. So that was always going to be more of an issue for Liverpool. And it's probably why in the first leg, Nunez was effective, because they could get in behind through the middle. Was when he came on. It just didn't click for either Jota or Nunez against PSG. Salah's had to reinvent his game to be more of that playmaker and beat a man with his movement rather than getting in behind. Diaz just hasn't looked at his best for a couple of months now, really. It's been telling that Liverpool been out Cody Gakpo. Like, you can tell that's where these issues are coming from, because he was the one who was getting goals along with Mo Salah, and you wouldn't mind so much that the centre forward position wasn't nailed down, because you had that continued goal presence on both sides, both pacey as well in the right way. But then you take him off, and it's Diaz trying to get back to his best. You've got no real faith, consistency with those centre forwards, and it's just trying to get the right combination there. They do need more pace up there, but then it's like, where do you get it from in the rest of the team? Because Alexander-Arnold's never been rapid compared to some fullbacks. Like Conor Bradley's a lot quicker than him. Robertson's maybe lost a yard, and the midfield is more about that control, like McAllister, Curtis Jones. But still, Gravenberch's got an engine on him. Szoboszlai's got an engine on him. It's just getting that overall combined package. You lose one cog, like they did with Szoboszlai back in January. It makes a difference, and I think for the last 3 weeks, that's been the case with Gakpo.
Yeah, I think Gakpo's been a big miss, but
yeah,
that number 9 position, I know you've just discussed it, but it's just such a frustration. Jota is in and out of the team because of injuries. Nunez, I think we are seeing the last few months of his Liverpool career played out. But I suppose the question I'm getting at is, who do you keep, who do you sell in that forward line?
Yeah,
I mean, you've got Salah's contract hanging over them, which could change everything.
Well, that's the big one, isn't it? I don't think there's any need to throw the baby out with the bathwater. Liverpool have still got a brilliant squad on a really good team. They're the best team in the Premier League this season by a country mile, and had a few penalties being taken with a bit more precision on the night, we could be talking about Liverpool, coming away with a big win and a lot more to look forward to. So I don't think we need to make radical changes, but certainly through the middle, I think Jota can be, a really useful option if he stays injury free. But he started the season as the first choice, didn't he? And then he gets the injury at Chelsea, and I don't think he's been the same ever since, really. And that was nearly 5 months ago now. So that's a long old time to not be at your best. And particularly across his 5 years at Liverpool, he's never really put together a sustained run, has he, in the team? He's been in and out with injuries. His best season, I think, was 3 years ago now, 21-22. So that is a major concern. And Nunez, we're getting towards the end of his 3rd season now, and I'm still sort of having the same discussions we were having 3 or 4 weeks into his Liverpool career. Can be a player when he's on it, but just seeing him come on the other night, and that level was just so good. Both teams were brilliant. I thought it was a brilliant game of football. Incredible game for the neutrals, and you could just see Nunez wasn't at that level. And it's no real slight on him. I think he could go somewhere else in the Premier League, play every week, and become a real serious player for whoever that team is. Putting the cat amongst the pigeons against bigger teams and whatever else. But I just think for what Liverpool need, they need a bit more surety and they need a bit more poise and a bit more precision. So that is the number one priority for the summer now. But Salah's contract issue is the one that makes it a bit more difficult to navigate, because if Salah was tied down, you'd just say, well, Liverpool just need to go and get a number 9 and start sort of scouring the market for who that is. But we don't know what's going to happen with Salah, so they might need another forward. And then you're not going to be able to replace what Salah's given you this season or any season, really. You're just sort of hoping that whoever comes in does a passable impression of it. So, yeah, that is the sort of the big what-if, isn't it, Salah?
It's an odd scenario because realistically, Gakpo's the only one you can say with absolute confidence should be at the club next season. And the others, it depends what offers come in. Like Jota, if someone comes in with big money, you'd take it because of the injuries. Same with Nunes because he just doesn't deliver. And Diaz, he's always been a player who starts the season really well, finishes it really well, but is up and down in the middle. He's just always had that.
Doesn't get enough goals.
Doesn't get enough goals. He's always had that level of inconsistency to his game. And like Liverpool's recruitment team, it's not about bulking the squad up, is it? It's about trying to improve that starting 11. So if the players are out there who are going to be an improvement on those, you try and do it. But when you're looking to do so many of the attacking players, it's a big ask. I'd imagine we're getting to the point now where we all assume Chiesa's going to go in the summer because we're using 6 subs now and isn't Slot in the last 2-3 games and he's not getting off the bench here. And you could argue against PSG, maybe it's mind games because Donnarumma is going to know which way he's going to go because of all that training in Italy when they go away with the national team. But it's still a player who could come off the bench and get you a goal to avoid the penalties, and he never looks like he's going to come off the bench. There's question marks against so many of these forwards, which is ridiculous when Liverpool are so clear at the top of the table and having a really good season, with Gakpo having a career best, Salah going on to maybe hitting his career best. It's quite remarkable.
I mean, we've got loads to talk about, but that's why I think, I mean, you and I just said this to each other before there in the office, is it feels like Liverpool are set to undergo huge changes in the summer, either way, whether that be through the contract situation or, like you say, some of the forwards. But I feel like that about all the forwards. You think that Gakpo's the only one, really, that you can say for sure. Otherwise, Nunes, I think, is almost certain to leave now. Diaz was somebody that they probably would have moved him on last summer if they'd have got a decent offer and they could have got Gordon in. There was obviously a thought there. And then Jota's just too injury prone. You probably keep Jota because you're not going to get that many big offers.
Jota as a squad option would be really useful, yeah.
But and Chiesa is another one that you probably think they might end up moving on. So there could be a lot of movement there.
The Chiesa one for me is strange, isn't it? You look at it now. He's played 25 minutes of Premier League football. He's not going to start a game this season, is he? Unless Liverpool win the league with a few games to go, and he's not going to get a Premier League medal, if they win the league. So that was a gamble, a calculated one, and we all spoke about why it could have paid off, but it hasn't. And can you see him being at Liverpool next season?
Yeah, I mean, the other thing I would say, and we've all made quite clear our thoughts on FSG, but they tend to go through these summers, don't they, where they don't sign anyone, and then they revamp the whole midfield and bought 3 or 4 players. I just think it's going to have to be a big summer. There's no getting away from it. There's going to have to be a big commitment.
It was a big summer with the forwards when they got Nunes in, when they got Carvalho in, when they got Diaz the previous January early, when they got Gakpo the following summer. They're already supposed to have revamped this attack to replace Mane, Firmino, and then if you're going to have to replace Salah now, but you get to the point, well, Carvalho is never going to be a long-term option. We saw that pretty quickly. Nunes is getting written off now. Diaz can't quite match that level that Mane left, which is no slant on him, but Liverpool do need that elite player, and Salah's going to be impossible to replace that output. It's going to take a hell of a scouting from them to find the right player. I've still got faith in the recruitment team that they can find the right players because they have brought in Alisson, Salah, Van Dijk, etc. But there are question marks about the forwards they brought in before because they haven't quite got to those levels.
I'd just like to sort of to play devil's advocate or just caveat it a bit by saying it feels like we're being hugely on the back of a result that just went against Liverpool on penalties. I don't think there's any need to rip it up and start again. I do think they need number 9. I've said that for months, and like that, I'm not being wise after the event, like I say. But if Diaz is still a Liverpool player next season, I've got absolutely no problem with that at all. And Cody Gakpo's had a brilliant his best season as a Liverpool player. And if Salah can get tied down, then brilliant. So I don't think it needs starting a total fresh, but there is a vacancy at number 9 really for Liverpool this summer,
which is going to cost big money. I think that's my point: is that wherever they spend that money, it's got to be a major commitment. maybe the answer's playing for the opposition on Sunday. But if it's Isaac, someone like that, then you're paying top dollar for that. So I just think that it's going to be one for a big spend. They're going to have to commit some funds towards it. And Núñez just hasn't worked out. And like you say, they obviously had an idea that he would be Liverpool's number 9 for the next 6, 7, 8 years, but it just hasn't really worked out for him. And I do think there are other. If Núñez had worked out, then Diaz might have moved on this summer. But like you say, they probably won't. They can't afford to sell everyone. But I certainly think there could be some change in that forward line.
He's probably still got the value as well, hasn't he, Núñez?
Yeah.
What is he, 25 now, maybe?
If Saudi is still interested, you should be able to get some money back.
Duran went for, 60 odd. So you imagine you're going to get similar for Núñez. Like, he's done more in the game, even if Duran looked a bit more prolific first half of the season with Villa.
He's just not sure of himself anymore. I felt quite sorry for him the other night in some respects, because when he walked up to take the penalty,
no one believed he was scoring that.
No one thought he was going to score. I mean, as soon as he walked up second, I thought...
I think everyone sort of winced at each other, didn't he? And, this is your £65 million striker stepping up to take it.
But I almost think that's one where the manager should have gone, sorry, Darwin, but your head's not right. I mean, you can tell
Rafa did that with Garcia, didn't he, in Istanbul? Garcia wanted to take one. He's like, no, you're not. Granted, he didn't have Alonso take one because he'd missed in the game, but the manager took control there. I do feel a bit for him because he took off a fair few penalty takers in that 120 minutes. Like McAllister would have taken one, Szoboszlai would have taken one, but you've still got Elliott, who's a good penalty taker. Van Dijk, we've seen do it in cup finals and for Netherlands. But then Jones has scored a couple in shootouts for Liverpool before. Núñez was supposed to be a good penalty taker before he came to Liverpool. We've just not really seen it. I remember him missing against Chelsea, didn't he, last year in the 4-1 when he hit the post. I think he's missed one like a friendly or something. He's just that player who you can't rely on to say, oh, he's definitely going to score. He's too emotional. He's not got that cool head on it.
He's too emotional, and you could see throughout the game.
He's in his own head, didn't
he? He got completely in his own head. There was 2 instances. One where he let the ball run, where he sort of swapped positions with Diaz. And he ran in the opposite direction. I mean, and it was
that's happening in the Champions League last 16 game. Like, you wouldn't expect that at Sunday League. You wouldn't.
Nowhere near on the same wavelength as his teammates. And there was another one where he come through on the left, and I thought he was going to have a shot. And I think Núñez in his first season would have had a shot, and he might have missed it. We'd all go, oh, why did he shoot? But Núñez, if he's true to himself, has a shot. He controls it and tries to square it back, and the chance is gone.
Oh, that was the one that was cut out to Salah, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Because we had that perception where we were in the press box up behind it, so you couldn't tell quite how close he was to the goal or whether he should shoot or square it.
Yeah.
But he looked very close from where it was, so it was puzzling that he had tried to square it.
Go across the keeper with your left foot. That looked like it was set up for it, didn't it?
Yeah. Look, we're going to have to move on a little bit from that because we've got plenty more to talk about and going forward into the cup final. Obviously, you've been at the AXA today. So in Newcastle, big press conference, players put up. I know Liverpool have got some players talking as well, but there's a lot of buzz around Newcastle. It felt a bit more like business as usual.
Yeah, very much so. Liverpool were here 12 months ago, weren't they, or 13 months ago, and very much know the score, how to handle cup final weeks from a sort of logistics perspective with the media and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, obviously Liverpool going for their 12th League Cup, aren't they? So been around the block. Newcastle, by contrast, they were obviously there 2 years ago, but this will be their first. If they win it, it'll be the first domestic trophy for 70 years, which is incredible. So
not even Doyley can remember that.
No, so they were keen to obviously make as big a deal of it as possible. They put up Alexander Isak and Bruno Guimaraes at the press conference today, which is a break from tradition itself, getting one player up, no man getting 2, and not only getting 2, that'd be Liverpool's equivalent of 2 real big stars, wouldn't it be, like Van Dijk and Salah, for example. So yeah, they're very much keen to make it as big an event as possible, and they're well within the rights to do so. The League Cup is derided at times, not on this podcast.
Never on this podcast.
But it is derided as, being the lesser of the 2 domestic cups. And
nobody puts Carabao in the corner.
Yep. So it's good to see Newcastle making a big deal of it, and I think the occasion on Sunday is going to be great, really. Newcastle fans are going to absolutely get stuck right into it. Liverpool fans, we know wherever they go, will make the most of it. So, yeah, really looking forward to it. But it was put to Slot today that perhaps this is a bigger game for Newcastle and it is Liverpool. And he dismissed it because he said, look at the quality of the teams. It means that anyone can get to a final on any given season, which is right. Shouldn't be taken for granted that Liverpool are getting to all these finals. So, really, really looking forward to it. And I wonder, I've said it for a few weeks, I wonder how much this 70-year trophyless thing is going to hang over Newcastle and how it's been affecting things in the build-up in that city this week, because it's a one-club city.
Yeah.
So it's obviously been the talk of the town this week. So that'll be interesting from their perspective, at least.
It's the cliche, isn't it? You've got to play the game, not the occasion, and that could be what causes Newcastle issues. We saw that
happened 2 years ago against United.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's when they win that first trophy, then the next time they get to another domestic cup final, they're not putting 2 players up. They're not making this big song and dance. I can understand why it's so big for them, but it's become ordinary for Liverpool, and that's what gives you that mentality to go and win these honours. It's like when Liverpool got that Champions League in Madrid, that they're in that better place to then go and win all the other trophies under Jurgen Klopp. And even just from having the experience in Kiev 12 months earlier, it's like we want to be part of this. We want to be here every single year. Whereas Newcastle, I can see the excitement, but it could come back to bite.
It's one of them, isn't it? I'm slightly frustrated that all this talk towards the game is about Newcastle, because I think it's massive for Liverpool. I mean, I'm a big believer in you should go out for every trophy that you can win, because, like you say, we shouldn't take it for granted that Liverpool reach cup finals. No one should take it for granted that Liverpool have been competing for league titles in recent years. You just have to look down the M62, don't you, to see what's going on with United and how quickly things can change, and suddenly you're struggling and you're scrapping to be back in the fight for trophies. So, and I also think this is massive for Slot. You know, it's his first cup final with Liverpool. They've just gone out the Champions League. I think there will be a little bit of narrative if they lose this game.
A long 2 weeks afterwards if they lose as well.
Yeah, exactly. And I always remember Klopp's first season when he lost those cup finals, and immediately, you know, all the wags get on with like, oh, well, Klopp's a loser, he doesn't win cup finals, and Liverpool haven't won a trophy. And before you know it went 18 months, and people were like, he hasn't won it. So to win one early gets that monkey off your back, and I think is really important, and will give them confidence that they'll go into the final run in a good place. Listen to this for a start. Julian Baxendale, regular listener, thanks Julian, sent over. Liverpool's last 5 cup finals: Flamengo in 2019, Chelsea 2022, Chelsea FA Cup final 2022, Champions League final against Madrid 2022, and then the League Cup final in 2024. They scored a single goal in normal time in any of those games. It would be nice if Liverpool just scored a goal in normal time.
First challenge, score a goal.
Yeah.
I tell you what is interesting though. How many of those has Mo Salah played? Because he goes off in the FA Cup final injured.
Yeah.
Didn't play League Cup last year.
Didn't play League Cup last year. Does he play the League Cup 2022? I can't remember now.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
So, I mean, in terms of minutes, he hasn't played anywhere near as many as Liverpool would have liked.
It's unlikely as well for Salah, because he plays almost every game.
Exactly, yeah.
But on the big occasions, he seems to have fallen victim to some.
He doesn't actually score that many in these finals. Like, it's a penalty in the Champions League final and Community Shield when they actually won it. So he's going to want to get his fingerprints all over this,
especially after the way Tuesday night ended for him.
Yeah.
And what if it's his last Wembley appearance for Liverpool? What if it's last final for Liverpool?
If you to ask him, he'd tell you that it is, because at the moment the contract hasn't been signed. So I think that area of the pitch actually is going to be massively important. You know, Jarell Quansah up against Harvey Barnes. A couple of deputies filling in there, and then down the other side it's going to be Mo against
Livramento,
Trippier. Was Dan Burn play there? So that area of the pitch is going to be where it's won and lost. Newcastle's midfield is probably one of the few that can sort of go toe to toe with Liverpool's on any given day, but I just think that little stretch of the pitch is where the game could be won and lost.
Yeah, on one hand, Julian said there, that shows how lucky they've been in finals, which I agree with, but it also shows how tense, nervy and difficult these occasions are. And like you say, you've got Newcastle with all this pressure and all this history trying to get this first trophy, and then you've got Slot in his first final. I think we could see quite a cagey cup final.
Yeah, normally do, don't we?
Yeah.
Can't remember many where Liverpool have just controlled it. Even the few times where they score a couple of goals, it's been like one at the start, one at the end. Going back to like 2003 League Cup here.
Yeah.
But then reading some of the old stuff, you know, like when Liverpool battered Newcastle in the 74 Cup final, that was a surprise in itself for how one-sided it was. Finals aren't meant to be one-sided, and Liverpool always do seem to make it a little bit more difficult for themselves. Set pieces usually play quite a big part, whether it's corners, penalties, or whatever. So it'll be interesting to see how it shapes up. Like if Newcastle play at their absolute best, Liverpool are in for a game.
Yeah.
But if there's a little seeded out there, a little bit of pressure, you'd like to think Liverpool's game management can come out on top. Like the early penalty in Madrid against Tottenham all those years ago, that set the tone, didn't it? That put the seeded out in Tottenham and Liverpool. That right, calm down now.
Yeah.
But the longer it goes on, like Kelleher's had to be an absolute hero the last two League Cup finals, time and time again. Liverpool have had to rely on set pieces.
Well, I think Liverpool have got a bit of a reputation as well as being spoil sports, which could work in their factor this weekend. You know, you go back the last sort of 30 odd years. You know, they beat Sunderland in, was it 92, the FA Cup final? Beat Bolton Wanderers in 95. They beat West Ham.
What are you looking at me there, Gorsty? Bolton 95. Why are you looking at me for that one?
That wasn't deliberate. Beat Bolton Wanderers. They beat, you know,
loyalties that day, weren't you?
Yeah,
I
was only 2.5.
You're 2.5, but you must have been fuming, mustn't you?
Alaves in 2001, Birmingham in 2001. You know, when Liverpool are the bigger team going into the cup final, they do tend to eventually make that count. I know obviously it's different players and all that sort of stuff, but that sort of institutional memory sometimes shouldn't be overlooked.
Yeah, certainly. We need to pick teams. We need to do all that beforehand. I've got lots of different questions that don't kind of fit the pod structure, but I'm going to throw them in now. First one is something that you and I were talking about before in the office, Theo. Carabao 42 in the comments says, do you think Slot has small team mentality? And he means this in the way that you cannot play the number of games Liverpool play each season with 14 or 15 players only. Do you think he's learning that a little bit?
I wrote that as my talking point yesterday. I think it's fine for Feyenoord where you don't have two domestic cups. He hasn't gone all the way in the Champions League. I know he got to the Conference League final in the old format, but it's very different when you're going at the top end of the Premier League. You're going against the best teams in the Champions League. Like, granted, you don't expect to go all the way in both domestic cups, but the League Cup's in there as well. I just feel if there were a few more players in his squad, he was turning into more, Liverpool would have been in a better condition against PSG. Like if he wanted to see Harvey Elliott more. Like, granted, it's completely fair if he says, Harvey Elliott's not for me. He's someone I want to move on in the summer. I want to upgrade there. Same for Chiesa. But he said the other week that he prefers having those 14, 15 players. It doesn't really work in England. It's not feasible like that anymore. It's better to have the most use of your entire 20, 21-man squad. And that's what something Pep Guardiola has been so good with Man City when they were at their peak, because it was 2 11s, wasn't it? They could put their second team into the League Cup and still get to the final.
You could never put a Man City player in your fantasy football team because he would always just drop.
So that is something that I think Arne Slot needs to learn, if he hasn't already, in that second season. And it could be something that the transfer window changes completely when he gets his own players in this squad, and it's not just would like a sixth forward. Oh, Chiesa's available.
I don't think he's going to expand that too much though, to start using sort of 19-20 weekly.
Yeah,
because, you know, let's not forget Liverpool are 15 points clear at the top of the Premier League, and if they win Sunday, the League Cup winners, having largely used the same number of players week in, week out. He's certainly got a core who he trusts.
Yeah,
I think Elliott was a little bit unfortunate with that foot injury that kept him out of probably Liverpool's best period of the season, sort of October, November time when they beat the likes of Leverkusen and Real Madrid and Man City.
I think it was also key time to persuade the manager, wasn't it? You know, it was early doors in his reign.
Yeah, and Chelsea as well. That was a big result around that time. So, yeah, I don't think he's going to, you know, we're going to see next season he's going to be making 4s and 5s and 6 changes on a weekly basis. I think he's kept the same team, is it 7 times now in his first season? I think Slot did it 6 times in his 400 and however many games. So, clearly he is a fan of continuity. Players getting to know each other's movements and stuff, and you know, it's difficult to say he's getting it wrong because of what Liverpool have done, and had a few penalties being taken a bit better the other night. You know, wouldn't really be saying that he is, you know, not getting it right in terms of not using the full remit of the squad. So, you know, you can say 1 or 2 players are looking a bit leggy because of the minutes they played, but also look at the results and you think it's hard to say he's getting it wrong.
But then they'll get burnt out the more you play them, the longer you get into the season. Like Southampton, he could have easily started.
Yeah, so the Southampton one was an interesting one. I thought he'd make more, but he made 3, which for him is probably still quite radical, isn't it? But
and then he says he makes a mistake starting Szoboszlai. It could just take an extra couple of players here and there to manage it across the season. But it seems to be, it's more one game at a time, isn't it? Like you said, if it hadn't been for the quick turnaround between the first leg in Paris and Southampton, he'd have probably named the same team again, didn't he?
Yeah.
So it's like, well, you do need to look at it a bit more further afield. It's still one game at a time, but make the best use of your squad. For me, I think there's something else there is to be learned from that.
Couple of questions from Mickey in Finland, who is subscribed to NordVPN. So thank you, Mickey. We wore you down. He says, now it seems 99% sure, not 99%, but maybe 90, that Liverpool will win the league. What do you think would have happened if Klopp would have stayed? Would you think we'd have more or less points than now? I mean, very difficult to say.
Well, I think Liverpool have only got 3 more than they had last season.
Have they,
yeah, I think so. We were checking that, but I think they've obviously benefited from Arsenal and Man City tailing off. But this time last year, we were talking about Liverpool potentially going on and becoming Premier League winners, weren't we? So I don't think it would have been too much difference. Maybe the style of football might have been, maybe a couple of injuries here or there, but in terms of results, I think they might have been on par, which probably shows you how good the job Slot has done because of how good a manager Klopp was and is. It's difficult to say, really.
It's like last year, if he hadn't left, then you don't have that emotional strain on so many games in that season where we've got to win the league for Jurgen Klopp. When every match became that struggle.
Just started too early, that, for me, that push. Like, if that would have come in round about late March time.
But and 5 games to go.
Instead of like.
But then they needed the push when they got
it
it to win the League Cup because of all the injuries. So you can look at it either way. It's hard to say, isn't it? Like, they always get more injuries when it was Jurgen Klopp in charge, and that has been one of the big strengths this year, that they have been relatively injury-free for the majority. Like, it's only this weekend you don't have a natural right-back. You're thinking there's a bit of a hole there. So it probably helps having a more controlled style when you're going for a league title. And yeah, the rivals have fallen back a bit, but yeah, just the fact that they haven't had those many injuries, they have been able to get a better hand on it. But then I reckon if Jurgen Klopp was still in charge, they'd probably get past PSG. It's that sort of twist and turns, isn't it, this season?
That's the thing. I think Klopp was always the type of manager who could tap into the emotion of the occasion. But I think Slot, like you say, a more controlled style. I'm convinced Liverpool would have had more injuries this season because, I mean, I remember games last season where they'd be 3-0 up or 3-1 up and they'd be throwing themselves into things with 10 minutes to go, whereas Slot's team go the other way. And the last 20 minutes of games become fairly boring, but there's nothing wrong with that. And one thing I always found odd with Klopp and his whole reign is they went like that when they won the league. They went quite boring that season. If you think back to that season, that some of the games
they were past like Norwich by a goal, Wolves by a goal.
And they weren't the most exciting games, but Liverpool just managed the season and did it pretty well. Whereas and then they've done that under Slot. Whereas, like, I think that last season they went back to like throwing everything into. I mean, I was watching the Klopp documentary and the Chelsea game, which I think is the first league game. Was that Chelsea game, the Conor Bradley one? The first league game after
that was in January, so
that was the first one after he'd announced he was going, because they played the FA Cup, didn't they? And then they played the league game.
Sounds right.
And you know, obviously that they beat Chelsea and they beat them handily, but I remember that game was like full throttle, going for it all game, and Chelsea were well beaten, but Liverpool just kept going at them. And whilst it was great to watch, it was thrilling. It was probably almost too thrilling. It probably could have declared it 3-1, maybe even 2-1 and managed the game. So I think Slot has brought in that, like, an ability to manage the game. It'd be interesting to see how he manages a league campaign next season. Because Mickey's second question is, taking a quick look at next season, who's Liverpool's biggest threat, Arsenal or City? Well,
Manchester City.
I always think Man City. I don't want to sound all Ian Doyle here, but it wouldn't surprise me if Liverpool dropped to third next year. Why they undergo some changes and
depends which players leave Liverpool. Depends what happens with the Man City case. If any of their players leave as well, like if they have a points penalty, 30 points taken off, they're not going to challenge for the title, are they?
I think one thing it has shown is Liverpool aren't about to fall off a cliff.
No.
So yeah, I mean, do we right in the mix again next season?
Maybe
probably as champions.
That centre forward battle, because so many clubs are going to be looking for one. If Arsenal get centre forward, they want Liverpool. Chelsea, if they upgrade on Jackson. If United get one. It's only Man City who don't need one, really, isn't it? So that could be decisive.
That's interesting, yeah. The battle for a centre forward, especially between Liverpool and Arsenal. You know, because you could imagine,
especially if they go for the same one,
you could imagine them both going after Isaac, and the winner of that could, you know, you could imagine if Arsenal getting Isaac, I can imagine them being pretty hard to dislodge next season. So if Liverpool get him, then the same goes for them. So that should be interesting. Another fairly random question that I want to ask, because we've had this from Mark Walker. Hey Joe, an American sports nut has decided to try following Liverpool this season to spend more time with my brother, who's
Picked
a
the right
diehard.
season.
Picked the right season. I've since become pretty obsessed with Liverpool and the Prem in general in the last few months. Do you guys have any suggestions of people, events, concepts, or other info a newcomer to European football should familiarise themselves to maximise the experience?
Blood Red Podcast.
The Blood Red Podcast.
It's a very good question, really. You normally think of being a follower of a club as being sort of institutionalised, don't you? You know, from a very young age. So it's interesting that he's picked Liverpool. I assume he's an adult. So I don't know, really. Good question. Ask it again. Is there any?
Do you guys have any suggestions of people, events, concepts, or other info a newcomer to European football should familiarise themselves?
Maybe the 2005 Champions League final.
Yeah.
Go and watch that back in its entirety.
Watch the whole thing. Yeah.
And realise that Liverpool were unfancied, probably shouldn't have ever been in the final against an AC Milan side. They were the best team in European football at the time. Go 3-0 down, concede inside 2 minutes, and somehow come back and win. Probably that would be the first point of reference. Any others? Barcelona 4-0?
Yeah, Barcelona
4-0. Mine would be just general advice would be to just consume everything. Read and listen and watch everything from fan websites, so your Anfield Wraps, your Redmen TVs, consume everything there, so you can see what die-hard Liverpool fans are saying. But then go the opposite way as well and read Nationals, read The Guardian, The Times, and find out what the wider football world thinks of Liverpool and get both perspectives, because I always think that's really... After a game, I love to read all those different things, obviously the Echo as well, but read all those different things, see what the wider perspectives are, see what the fans are saying, and that's how I sort of consume my football.
And so you get clued up on your history as well.
Yeah.
Like, even if it's just deep dive on LFC history, like once you understand where Liverpool have come from, you're more entwined with it, aren't you?
Yeah, that's a really good
shout. I guess first and foremost would be understanding the club you're following. It's the roots of the club, the sort of views of the fan base, beyond wider football and things. Little things like that, but also as well, make sure you check out some famous wins.
Yeah,
as to
just
why.
Type in Anfield Greatest Nights on YouTube and enjoy it. Yeah, certainly. Thank you, Mark, for that question.
Good question, that.
Yeah, it was a good question, really interesting. So thank you for that. The final question that I promised that I would ask is slightly late now, from Steve, who emailed me after the first PSG game, but I will agree with him on this. He basically was saying it was disappointing to have to listen to McCoist, and then in particular Rio Ferdinand. It was Rio Ferdinand I didn't watch on TV the other night because I was there, but was Ferdinand involved the other night?
It was prime, wasn't it? So he wouldn't have been.
No one wants.
Because he did explain why you didn't hear him after Elliot's goal on TNT, because he was running down.
That was interesting, wasn't it? Loads of Liverpool fans basically saying, he's been put in his place here. He hasn't said a word for 5 minutes. And it was basically because he leaves the gantry with 5 minutes to go to make sure that he's pitch side. But you know what? There's just too much Rio Ferdinand on that coverage. The man is like, he's covering every blade of grass. He's in a tunnel. He's on pitch side. He's in the gantry. He's on the adverts with Kaka.
Yeah.
Fly Emirates or something. He just can't escape.
He's going full influencer like our video editor over there.
Sick of him.
To be fair, if he was on it for 30 seconds, I'd be saying there's too much Rio Ferdinand. Sorry, Rio, but...
The ubiquitous Rio Ferdinand.
Yeah. And then he's got his podcast too, doesn't
he? Yeah. So, sorry, Steve, but yeah, I agree. No one wants any Rio Ferdinand anywhere in their lives. Right, let's pick our teams and make some predictions for Sunday, because I guess it's not going to be the most straightforward team selection. Or it might be, but there's a lot to discuss about it.
Yeah. I mean, Kwanzaa is the last man standing at right back.
Played all right the other night when he came on.
Yeah. I mean, he gave them something to think about, didn't he? It wasn't just a centre back who's filling in. I'm going to get forward. He's a decent crosser of the ball, to be fair.
That's like the first thing he did, wasn't it? Putting a decent cross, and no one got on the end of it.
And he almost scored. So he's another threat from set pieces, I suppose. And they're a big team. Newcastle.
Slot said that, didn't he, as well? So he comes in. Obviously Virgil. Konate we think is going to be okay, which is huge.
I took his social post yesterday to mean he's fine. Just him saying see you at Wembley. Got over it.
Yeah. It just looked like cramped to me. I thought it was cramped.
That's what Slot said, and Robertson over Simicast,
Yeah, I'd go for that same.
The goalkeeper. What do we do with there?
I reckon he'll go back to Kelleher.
I think he'll go Kelleher.
Do you both think that?
Yeah.
Well, he said, was it before the second leg of the semi that it's the number 2 goalkeepers tournament for the majority, or he said it after that, and it was only because Alisson had just come back from the injury that he played in the first leg. So I think they're carrying on with that Klopp's throwing him a bone, letting him play in the League Cup.
You can debate it, yeah, certainly.
I absolutely, and I really like Queven Kelleher, and obviously he's been a hero of recent cup finals, but he's not played for quite a number of games. It's not as if he's played a lot of games recently or
coming cold.
He's coming in completely cold. Alisson is in good form. I just don't think you're putting him in there.
No, I think you're right. And also, like Klopp did a couple of years ago, was a bit of a carrot to say, stay here and these are the sorts of days you can have. Albeit as a number 2, but you will get your chance. Mamardashvili's coming in. Kelleher's contract's up next summer, so this is going to be the last one to cash in on him. You don't really need to be that player's manager anymore, do you? In terms of keeping them sweet.
I also think there's an element of, if you happen to bring Quansah in at right back, slight disruption on the defence already, isn't it? A younger head in there. You just put the more experienced man in. I would, and I'd be slightly annoyed if he puts Kelleher in. And that's not. I promise you, there's not a knock on Kelleher. I think he's a really good player. I just think it's the first cup final. It's a big opportunity. Just be ruthless.
Well, did Slot say the other night against PSG that he's the best goalkeeper in the world?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So why?
He said he never coached the best.
Why wouldn't you want the best player in that position in your goal? It's like having, if you think Mo Salah is the best player in the world at the moment, it's like deliberately not picking him.
Look, Chiesa started the West Ham game
in
the third round. You don't then go, well, you get to play throughout the whole tournament. I just think, to me, it goes back to what I was saying about Núñez the other night. I don't think he should have been on a pen. And I think they almost did it to go, well, you put your hand up.
This feels like it could be a little panel piece, this.
Go on there.
Do it tomorrow.
Yeah.
Tomorrow, yeah.
Go and get yourself on that penalty and become a hero. And really, they should have said, stand down, Darwin. You've had a torrid time.
Well, one question for you then. Say Alisson starts. You got a sub left. Do you bring Kelleher on in the last 2 minutes?
No. Although I know what you mean. I don't necessarily think I ever watched a penalty shootout with Alisson. I don't know how
goalkeeper's been sitting rigid for 90 minutes.
Kelleher's so good at that.
I also think that puts massive pressure on your goalkeeper then. Because I know Netherlands did it, didn't they, that time when they brought
Tim Krul
on, did well.
Chelsea
tried it and it didn't work. And
so they took off Mendy, didn't he? Was it for Kepa, was it?
Yeah.
Kepa didn't get near one.
Yeah.
And then they tried to take off Kepa and he refused.
That was 2017.
They did, yeah. But I just think that puts massive pressure on your goalkeeper when they're coming onto the pitch, because the whole narrative immediately is like, oh, he's coming on because he's good at saving pens. So if you're a goalkeeper, psychologically going like, well, I've got to save something here. I don't know. It just doesn't work for me.
I was Kelleher, to be honest, but just having that chat there, I've changed my mind, massively. Alisson.
Yeah, there you go. Easy, aren't you? Just easy to manipulate.
Just always open to
my little puppet, aren't you?
I'll have to stick with Kelleher then, so at least we're disagreeing for predicted teams when that goes out on Sunday.
Yeah. So did I manage to convince you as well?
No,
really?
I still think Kelleher. I still think it's the League Cup competition, Sis.
Well, anyway. Right, well, pick your midfield, then Theo. Be wrong about that.
Tyler Morton starts against Southampton.
It's probably going to be Gravenberch, McAllister, Szoboszlai.
It's got to be, hasn't it?
It's not really anything there to
I
argue
think
with.
So, yeah.
I thought McAllister, by the way, the other night, I know he was absolutely run into the ground by the time he came off, but was just outstanding. Yeah. He's just, I think he's the best midfielder in the world. I'll go as far as saying that.
I thought that was Endo.
No, well, Endo is all time. But yeah, I mean,
so he'll take it in any position, Moni, back to goal.
Yeah, that's why I think he's won the World Cup, so I think that backs him up. But yeah, he can play in any position. He's scrappy. How many sort of like little interceptions or little tackles did he make the other night? He can play further forward.
Could
he
have had
creates
a big
things,
assist
gets
as
goals.
Well.
Yeah,
should have had a free kick when Kvaratskhelia battered him.
I don't know. Yeah.
That was in front of the.
Midfield didn't get a free kick for like 48 minutes.
That was crazy.
Incredible.
That, yeah. Well, they're saying that I thought the referee had a fairly decent game all round. So there was anything wild in there that you would.
Nothing jumping out. Just surprised that Liverpool didn't get a free kick in the first half.
He wasn't given really any though, was he? But yeah, McAllister, I think, is just incredible.
It's going to be a hell of a midfield battle if both have the first choice threes. It's probably the most exciting part of the game, isn't it? When you sit against Tonali, Guimaraes, and Joe Linton.
I like Tonali. I think he's a good player.
Really good.
Yeah. Who's your forward line, Gorst?
Salah. Don't think Gakpo's anywhere near 100%, so sadly he will have to sit on the bench.
Looked like he barely moved the other day.
I know. Well, the thing I said it to you today, that he had his tracksuit bottoms on, which is normally an indicator that you're not really meant to be coming on. So it was like, I've got to get these off quick.
But I thought they must have brought him on to take a pen, and then he didn't step up in the first 3. And again, I think like if you brought him on to take a pen, why wouldn't it be one of the more immediate ones?
Well, Elliott's revealed he was number 5, so who's 4?
So
Van Dijk, Gakpo. Go either way.
I just imagine that because he just didn't look anywhere near fit. He wasn't even getting back really.
No,
He looked like he'd played the rest of the
You think about how good he's been as well up until that Everton game over a month ago. Yeah. So Diaz is going to have to play, and I don't know who I want as a number 9.
I've seen a few people suggesting go back to the box midfield.
I was just about to say, could you even do that? Which sounds ludicrous to not play a striker in a Wembley final, but I don't think either of them have covered themselves in glory. It depends what type of game plan you want. I said this the other day. If you're looking to dominate the ball and get in and around the penalty area, Jota is the one who can sniff out more of a chance. But if the game's going to become stretched and there's going to be space in behind Newcastle, and Nunes is probably the one you want. So tough, really. I'd probably just go with Jota.
Yeah, I reckon Jota. It may be him dropping into midfield and being that 9.5 helps when you look at the 3 you're up against. Like Newcastle, it's a big defence, so there's a chance he could get isolated like he did a little bit against PSG. But Nunes off the bench sometimes has more of an impact. I know it can go either way. Like we've seen him come on and do absolutely nothing, but we've also seen Nunes come on and win games. But then it's, you're thinking it might go to penalties. Having Nunes taking another penalty, you can't think like that though, can you? So it probably is Jota gets the edge. I'd love Gakpo to just be past fit though, and then you put Diaz down the middle because you have to.
I'd be tempted to go box, and I think some of the most dangerous
4 against 3.
Yeah, and just try and almost surprise Newcastle and get beyond what I think is a big physical but fairly flat-footed
Is that giving them
defence.
a bit too much respect?
It kind of is, but also is it trying to surprise them? I think back to some of the best performances this season and getting Szoboszlai further forward, running beyond obviously Man City, and I thought Tottenham, he was outstanding at Tottenham.
Yeah,
just getting beyond Tottenham's defence and catching them. Wembley's a big pitch, and I wonder if you can give him more licence to get forward and
there's
get beyond.
Gakpo and Diaz is number 9. Like, he hasn't done that for a while, has he?
Yeah, I mean,
That's because Gakpo's been out though for most of the last month.
Yeah,
I think he would do that if Gakpo was fully fit, but I get the feeling he's not. But I wonder whether, if I'm going with the 3, it's got to be Jota. I think. I just think that Nunes' confidence is shot, and I'm sure the manager won't go with him. And I think for all Jota's problems, you'd still think he's likely to get one of those dirty tap-ins from a corner or whatever. He's just that sort of
just
player,
alive
isn't
to
he?
something.
My issue with him at the moment is, last year he seemed to always score those goals where it's bouncing off his shin, bouncing off the defender, and he somehow gets through. He seems to be trying that, and it's just not coming off for him.
Although I did saying that the other night, I thought I probably sitting in the crowd thinking, "Get Nunes on." Nunes came on. I was thinking they looked better. They looked better when Jota was playing, and I probably took Jota a little bit for granted. So I mean, they played fairly well the other night. Obviously, PSG caught them cold with the goal, but it was kind of a little bit fortunate, wasn't it, in the sense that Konate tries to cut it out.
Yeah,
but they did create 1 or 2 big chances early doors. So if they played anything like they did the other night, I think
it was really good the other night. I don't think we can let the fact that they got knocked out on penalties cloud that too much, because PSG are the top side.
Yeah.
Could easily, they're probably going to meet Real Madrid in the semi-final. It's going to be a hell of a game.
Yeah.
The sign is that the chances don't fall to the strikers anymore. Like we've said this in the press box. You think how many chances Nunes would miss in games last year? It's like
he's not getting the chances.
He's not getting them. Like Nunes's Jota's only chance against PSG was heading over from a corner. Really, I can't remember a shot Nunes had that was clear cut chance that Donnarumma's had to save. It's all going to Salah, and then Mendy. Was it Mendy? No, Mendes had him in his back pocket for the majority. Diaz was in and out, but then against Newcastle's defence, it's not as good. It's not as quick. Should favour those wide players a bit better.
Yeah, hopefully. Come on, then, give us your big Carabao prediction.
Yeah. Liverpool to win 2-1 in extra time.
Yeah, you're going for extra time.
Yeah.
We all working beyond again.
I just don't think, like we said, Liverpool ever make a final straightforward.
No, they don't.
Champions League final was probably the most straightforward, and that was just because there were 2 goals either end of the game. That big space in between was
nervy as hell, wasn't it? Yeah, if you
I don't remember anything that happened in those 80 minutes.
And they didn't play particularly well against Tottenham. If you look back, like you say, that those 2 goals, but it was just cagey and not very nice.
2-1 in 90 minutes.
I'm going to go 2 on extra time. I'm with Gorsty on that. I think they'll make hard work of it. But
2-1 in 90 minutes is hard work of it.
Yeah, it is.
Tell you what, though, obviously you want to win it because it's the final and stuff for Liverpool, but it's almost a bit of a must-win in terms of just reassuring the wider world that we're looking to snipe that the wheels aren't falling off.
Yeah.
Because if they don't win this, they're still going to be champions, but there's going to be a long couple of weeks before that Everton game. It's longer than 2 weeks because they haven't got a game that weekend. It bleeds into the next weekend. Is it Wednesday night? So having not got over the line in the Carabao Cup final will leave a lot of airtime for your likes of your Gary Nevilles and your Paul Masons to catch a lot of headlines.
And
with
Arsenal
not a lot going
play twice, don't they? Because they've got Chelsea before the cup final, but then is it Fulham before the day
Fulham
before?
At home,
So they can really close that gap, put the pressure on.
And that's what Liverpool's saving grace this season a lot has been, that whenever Arsenal have had a chance to fill that gap, they've stumbled, haven't they? And you're not expecting them to do that forever. And I'm with you. I think now, especially like in the way the modern game is, the amount of airtime there is for the likes of Neville, and already
Rio Ferdinand.
Neville was saying, wasn't he, the other day, the Arsenal of last season would have won this league. I don't think it's pretty much the same team as it was last season.
Yeah.
I think they will fill that a lot with Liverpool doubts, because I think nobody really fully believes that this Liverpool team is the real deal.
Well, Sky want it to be more of a title race than it is, don't they? They want it to be a really nitty-gritty April, Arsenal taking its time. It's not going to be. They could have dreamed that Liverpool beat Arsenal to win it, but Liverpool can have it done at end of April at this rate.
Yeah, and I think people want to write this season off, don't they? It's a little bit. It's a transitional season, and Liverpool have just come out on top, and I think doesn't give credit to the great work they've done under Slot, because they've won some massive games.
You don't lose once all season.
They've lost once all season, and they've stayed strong, haven't they? They've showed a real mentality to get through. Think of all the tests, Man City away, Brentford away, those types of games where there was a lot of doubt. Even going into the Tottenham away game, I know Tottenham had their issues, but you remember beforehand there was a lot of doubt. Liverpool could lose this, and they've come through those tests. So this is a big test, and I think they can come through it.
Got to remember that PSG as well, they're probably most informed team in Europe at the moment. Like, it's easy to say they played great, they've got a really good 11, but it's only PSG and it's only the French league. Once Liverpool get knocked out,
it was only penalties that they got knocked out in. Like, I mean, I hate the phrase it's a lottery because I don't think it is with penalties, but it could go either way, couldn't it? Whenever you get that far, so I don't, you probably count on one hand the amount of poor performances Liverpool have had. I mean, that many have there. So,
and then 2 of them are, it's a shadow squad at PSV, it's a shadow squad at Plymouth.
Yeah, like I wrote on Wednesday or Tuesday, that was the first meaningful defeat of the season, and we're in mid-March, because Forest not going to count for much, is it? Liverpool are in all likelihood are going to be champions. Plymouth in the Cup, collateral damage for me, the FA Cup.
Yeah.
At a critical point of the season, Tottenham in the first leg meant nothing because they won the second, and PSV, they still topped the Champions League group. So
they basically threw that game, didn't they, against PSV? They just
it's a testimonial. We'll let Cody Gakpo go back, get his goal, get his standing ovation, and then just see it out wherever it goes.
Definitely. One final question: what's the best energy drink?
When I need an energy drink, I go nowhere but Carabao.
Yeah.
Carabao. I don't like the other one, do I? F1 fan. They're the evil enemy.
Oh yeah, they are the evil enemy. Carabao, where it's at? Have they got any influence in F1? Carabao?
No, I don't
Should
think
do.
so.
Should do.
That'd be a nice team, wouldn't it?
Monster do. I've had Monster at some races.
I'd start watching if they did.
Yeah.
Imagine how bright that car would be.
Nice pink mixed berries car.
Yeah, lovely little neon green in there.
Come on, Carabao. Let's get on board. Right, anyway, you will be back on Sunday live from Wembley, won't you?
Yes,
whatever happens.
before the game and after the game.
Little pre-match one, yeah?
Yeah, doing a pre-match one, going through the teams where we try and work out how it's all lining up, who's fit, who's not. And then post-match, a little bit later than normal, because we have to show them, hopefully, lift the trophy and celebrate lifting the trophy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll be there with Keith and McDonald.
Lovely. So so get on YouTube Sunday. We'll have plenty of build-up and analysis. And then on the Echo website, there will be plenty of stuff to get teeth into over over the whole weekend. We've got lots of preview stuff coming, haven't we, tomorrow, Gorst?
Yes, yeah. Had a wonderful chat with Virgil van Dijk and my colleagues today. So that'll be on the Echo's website this evening and in the morning. So yeah, look out for that.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you very much, gents. Enjoy Wembley. We'll be back over the course of the next few days. I'm sure you'll have Theo's post-match one, and then we will sort something out Monday, Tuesday to look back on, hopefully, another Carabao Cup win for Liverpool, and we'll be toasting some more Carabao. Until then, have a good weekend. Ta-ra.